We're here this morning. We're talking about wealth. We're talking about travel. Oh, another thing. Sorry. One other signal of wealth is travel. So your necklace, your shoes, your bracelet, your watch, quality of your garment, structure of your garment, pattern on your garments, and travel. Now, I'll say this. Have you the way to think about how your world shapes and forms is one of the ways that, oh, by the way, they had a beach called Sport Beach, which was dope, where they had Candace Parker was there. They just had a bunch of different conversations around sports, which I thought was dope. But anyway, so when I'm talking about signals of wealth, think or how your world shifts as you make more money. And think about when you play sports, right? Like, let's say if you're an athlete in any sport, your world shapes to that. Not everybody's living in that same world. So then you start to know more athletes. You start to know more about the quality of what shoes to wear. If you become an elite athlete, you start getting access to other things too, and other things come to you, messages. Another thing is like another way of thinking about it. So my kid in second grade, my oldest child, he entered into gifted and talented classes. Well, when he entered into gifted and talented classes, the messages that started to come to us all shaped were different. So like it was like we got a different type of orientation than the rest of the students got. They were telling us about math and science camps. The reason I know that it wasn't getting to other students is because I also had a child that was in the school. So because my kids are 3 years apart. So in elementary school, I have a child that's 3 years that's in school along with the other child. And I'm like, oh, I'm not for that child, I'm going to the regular orientations. And for this child, I'm going to special orientations. Oh, y'all didn't tell this in this session with these parents, y'all didn't talk about these math and science class opportunities. But over here, when I go to the GT parent, the gifted and talented parent sessions, y'all telling us about all kinds of upper, like high-end things to do, space camps and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, no, we should be clear. Just like I said earlier about looking at different news and going and seeking out global news outlets. So like go look at the different newspapers in the different in the different countries and read about it. I remember when back they had like the global like entrepreneur summit, and I went in India, and we're coming into town, right? Like we have whole like delegations from the US were coming into town. Delegations from all over the world had come, and it was the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And I remember getting a paper at the hotel door, looking at the newspaper, and the newspaper was basically saying that they had taken all the homeless people off the street. They had killed some of the dogs and taken the dogs off the street so we wouldn't see it. So our whole route, that whole time we were visiting, we would not see homeless people, and we would not see the dogs that were like roaming the street. And like, but had I not read that news, I would have been thinking like, oh, this is how India is, right? Like you just don't know. Oh, damn, my caller left. Come back, caller, because I wanted to take your call. But it's really interesting in terms of thinking through like how these things happen, or how like we're in our own bubbles, and you have to burst yourself out of the bubble in order to be able to see what is happening in other places. And so like anytime I can go and travel into these different bubbles and I can bring y'all back what's happening in these bubbles, I am. Okay, so you do not have to worry about that. All right, let's bring in Constance in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Constance.
Good morning, Omi. How are you? Congratulations in everything you've done. You sent me, I'm an Omi homie, so you sent me your video. Girl,
Thank
congratulations.
You. Thank you. What you thinking?
I'm the whole wealth and what you're wearing. I have a story because you were so right. I have always loved watches, always. And there was a particular watch that I've eyed for about 15 years, and I was able to finally get it. Well, it's not a watch, it's a timepiece. Well, I went on a cruise. Yes, I went on a cruise and to St. Bart's. Never heard of it, but that's where the wealthy people go. And I saw this watch in the window. And I went in the store, and she looked at me, and pulled it up on the internet, and I'm looking at her like, well, I could do that myself. When she saw my timepiece, oh, she went and got the timepiece watch with her gloves. But at that point, it was too late because if I was going to buy it, I'm not going to
That's
buy it
right.
because you didn't recognize that me as a black person, I may have had the money. You don't know.
That's right.
But yeah, you're right. People check your watch. They check the stripes on your clothes. Do they match? The bracelets, the necklace. I'm telling you, you are absolutely correct. So like I said, it's simple but elegant. It doesn't have to scream, but people do notice.
They do. And I think that, thank you for sharing that, Constance. And I think, you know what I'm learning is that people are getting a little better at not discounting Black folks. I know that's crazy to say, but like, because they still do it. But now when you walk into certain places, I'm noticing that, especially, and I'm gonna credit some of this to hip hop, right? Like I'm gonna credit some of this to hip hop. I'm gonna say that hip hop is in a certain way kind of helped with this because that's the Black people they can see. But for the most part, that are going in and dropping this money. So now they still look at you sideways like, what you doing here? First of all, French people are just not naturally nice anyway. So let me just say that. So for everybody, so don't, culturally, there's different things culturally. But like I said, the signal that you gave, she's like, oh, this is somebody that's not messing around. Like they actually know what they're doing. They actually know what they're looking at.
Yeah, but I just wanted to share that with you. You are absolutely correct.
Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate you.
Have a good day. Congratulations again.
All right, we got 2 minutes left in this hour. At the top of the hour, I'm going to give y'all a little bit of backstory to how I got on a gospel song, right? Which I know is like, what? On me on a gospel song? Yes, on me on a gospel song. We're gonna come back. I'm gonna tell y'all the story. We're gonna play the song, and I know we're gonna get into news. I know y'all want to talk about a ceasefire. It's also been covered extensively. So y'all, first of all, I'm gonna stop apologizing for not getting the news quick. I'm gonna stop that because y'all know when I come to bring a different flavor to the airwaves. Okay, I come to tell y'all what's happening in the world on multiple fronts. I come to help y'all gather perspective, and I come to so that we can talk about different parts of life, right? Like there's things happening in the world that we're going to get into. So my question was, what do y'all think about equality? I still want to talk about that. Equality in exclusive spaces. We talk about equality as Gen Pop, but what about equality in exclusive spaces? Do we actually want that? Are you a member of any private clubs? Do you want, quote, equality in them? Something to think about. We got to go to a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to tell y'all the story about the gospel song. Then we're going to play the gospel song. Then we're going to get into Karen Donaldson and some more guests. So y'all keep it locked right here. We're going to have fun this morning. Also, we'll give you a quick recap of what's happening with the ceasefire and all those things. Keep it locked right here. You listen to Urban View Morning, so we'll be right back. Welcome back.
If he right here with me,
Good morning, y'all. It is 8 o'clock. And we're at the top of the hour. I have a couple calls that I want to take, but my guest coming up soon will be Karen Donaldson, and we're going to talk about how to tactfully end a political argument. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. Right before she comes on, though, I will play the recap of everything that's happening right now with the ceasefire, lack of ceasefire. The kind of things that are happening, it's just real crazy right now. All morning I was talking about wealth. I was talking about my trip to Cannes Lions, south of France, and just really digging into what is equality and what is equality in exclusive spaces. I think when we talk about equality, we talk about it as a sort of general thing, but then we rarely talk about it being in exclusive spaces. And I mentioned a woman who she felt some kind of way about almost like her quote her exclusive space was being quote invaded almost by like people who did not have the same goals that she had. And I thought it was really interesting because then that happens if we're talking about getting more equal. Let's go to the phone lines. We got David in Michigan. David or Mississippi. Is that Michigan or Mississippi? Michigan.
It's Michigan.
David, welcome.
Good morning, Omi. Sounds like you had a very, very intriguing visit to Cannes or South France. But I wanted to say something because when you think about wealth and rich, those are two different categories, all right? And so, did you ever read the Thomas Stanley's The Millionaire Next Door?
Mm-mm.
See, because they did the research. And I'm going to read a very quick excerpt. And it says, these authors compare the behavior of those they call underaccumulators of wealth and those that who are described as prodigious accumulators of wealth. And what they found, they said that the millionaires are disproportionately clustered in middle class and blue collar neighborhoods and not in more affluent or white communities. This came as a surprise to the authors who anticipated the contrary. The authors looked and they explained that high-income white collar professionals are more likely to devote their income to luxury goods or status items, thus neglecting savings and investments. Let me tell you something. For 20 years, I was an investment advisor. I worked in wealth management for Citigroup, as well as another large bank and corporates. And the one thing that I found when I dealt with high income people or wealthy people, they never showed it. I worked with farmers, and the farmer would drive up in a F-150 Ford truck, and he had a net worth of somewhere in excess of $10 million, but you would never know it.
I think that's right.
Because they don't show their wealth.
So here's the thing. They don't, when you say show their wealth, they don't show it in ways that you would traditionally look for it, right? So like, and because everybody has their item or thing that they do, right? So like, meaning like the farmer person with the F-150, their thing is not visible in terms of like a car or a particular item. But if you go to their farm, they care about a particular kind of tractor, right? Like, because I think that like I love what you're saying. It's so on point. There's being rich, which is high income. There's being wealthy, which is focused on net worth and assets. So let's separate those. Love that you said that. Being rich, focused on,
because wealth can transfer.
Yeah, being rich is focused on income.
Wealth
It's high. It's high
50.
income. Being wealthy has to do with net worth and assets. Now, to your point though, and I love that you brought this in terms of it's not visible. I love that you said that because it's not visible in maybe, and mind you, like it's also that it's not visible all the time. Because if that farmer is going into, that farmer looks different if that farmer goes on a yacht. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little, like it depends on where you're at. So that's that. That farmer may choose not to do those things because that's not what they're into. When you get to certain levels, whatever you're into is what you are investing into. So if you are at, you know, like I said, they might have a level of tractor that is the most expensive one because that's what they invest in. You might go to their house and they got a collection of freaking art, you know, that you're like, oh my God, right? But it doesn't always show up on their person, right? Is what you're saying. But it does show up. And the reason why it shows up, but you may not know what to look for because it's all signals. But these are unspoken signals. These are not things that people are outright bragging about or saying, hey, look at it's not flashy. It's very, very simple. Like, you know, they might drive a Toyota.
Demure. It's very demure. Because I had, let me say this real quick. I had a client and he was a realtor broker. And I never will forget this gentleman. Because not only did he work a 9-to-5 as a biology teacher in Plainfield, Illinois, but my man had a series of real estate offices. And when you look at his equities, his investment portfolio was at $8 million. That was just his equities. That's discounting all of the land holdings and the hard assets that he had. But let me tell you what he drove back then. He drove the General Motors Aurora. Now he could fit into spaces, but I don't think that he was preoccupied with showing people what he had accumulated.
Well, not
So
only
you would
was he
never even
not, I don't
know.
know if it was him not thinking he doesn't want to show anyone. It was him thinking, I only want appreciating assets. So like, so the thought process is not, you get what I'm saying? So it's like what he's thinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think so I love this conversation, love you brought this up, because he's thinking, why would I spend my money on a car that doesn't make sense to me? Right? Now he might at home, because
you can't, you're not going to be able to sell that car 5 years from today and get what you paid for it.
100%.
And I think, let me just say this, and I'm going to go. I think that we are wasting too much of our money and our time doing those things. Like you said, the rappers. You can have these people who are, I shouldn't say that. Let me back up. Let me just say that some of the new wave money, I think they describe it as nuevo, okay, the nuevo, or what I think that's the way you say it. But the thing is, when you think about if something happens, can you translate that or transfer that into something of true significance and value? That's the value proposition. Not looking wealthy, but being wealthy.
Right. I think so. So I agree with you. I think that there's, like, to your point, there's a difference between jewels and jewelry, right? So I think there's that. Like, you have jewels, yeah, right, that you can pass on versus just jewelry. And don't get me wrong, are you treating your jewelry like assets? So like, if you invested in this, $1 million chain that they got, did you insure it? And then if you insured it, right? So like, I think because when we talk about wealth, we talk about real estate, we talk about insurance, right? Like that, like everything is insured. Right. So that you can borrow against that insurance. You could, right, if something happens to that thing, you get paid. Like, we're talking about those assets moving a little bit, like looking at things as assets, because when you look at it as an asset, you are insuring it. And the type of insurance you can get on it, you can leverage to do other things. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like all the things that are being moved around, or wealth, the way people are moving their money, and you know this because you're in wealth management, is they're just leveraging what they already have versus using actual capital or actual cash to move things around. So it's just like, oh, well, you have this net worth. You're leveraging this net worth to get the next building you want to buy, even though, and I think this is where, oh Lord, we had to have a whole breakdown, David, conversation around like how wealth moves one day, live on air. Cause I think that's that's something that I think I might bring forward. I have that unique opportunity, I think, as a host, to be able to bring wealth managers on to have conversation about wealth management and what that looks like. Because this is also a world that I don't think comes to us very easily, openly, or that people often, that if you didn't have it in your family, you kind of have to grow to it. Let me barge in. Let me barge in. Let me barge in. Because I'm going to say this. I want to state this. This is important. This is very, very, very important. The thing that because we don't, in a normal course of our life, we may be, in most instances, first generation northern born people. We may be first generation to come across some assets or some. I have a friend that she started off working with a big corporation when it was in its infancy. So of course, throughout the years that she worked there, she received stock options, okay? And then somewhere later down the road, she exercises her stock options, and she walked away with a nice big bag, as they say today. She had quite a bit of money. And, of course, she bought a home and this, that, and the other. But she didn't factor in the capital gains taxes that comes with that, and all the other tax implications that come along with that. So suffice it to say, and regretfully to say, that all the things that they had purchased, and they made purchases, they lost them because they couldn't pay the taxes on any of that. And it was just horrible. Oh, it was horrible because we don't have those kind of conversations. We don't have, that's not a normal discourse that the average individual is going to discuss, because we're the last people, on me, and I hate to say it, but we are among the last people to seek advice. Well, see, wealthy people seek advice. Okay, well, they have advisors. I mean, we can also, slate this under the umbrella of sort of white supremacist tools. But I would just say that what you're saying right now is there's in my mind, the way I was thinking about this is like, there is a way to move behind the tax gate, right? And that we don't talk about. So meaning like, how could they have moved without tax implications and still got the outcome that they desire? Because what we've been told as a community is buy a house. That like, that's the first thing, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't buy a house. I'm just saying that like, there's ways to buy a house that where you can move behind the tax barrier so that you are sort of navigating that capital gains tax moment where you gotta move behind the barrier of tax and say, okay, well, if I move it over here into this trust, and then have the trust on the house, then I'm not facing like there's like all these different things. I think some of that education is coming out now, but even still, it's coming out from some of these like,
But that comes as a consequence of having advisory. You don't know those things if you don't seek advice. If you don't seek advice, if you don't have your team prepared, you don't have CPA, attorney, if you or a financial advisor, that's your core team. Then you work and you're operating. It's just a matter of when, okay? Because when you have true objective people that are working with you and for you objectively, that can give you and guide you through these processes, this maze called Internal Revenue Code, then you're gonna lose.
All right, David. So I don't want to. So let's do this. Let's do this.
You want to be
I
able
love what you're saying, but instead of
on.
us calling out the fact that people don't have it, I want to say right now, if you're somebody out there who you may be coming into some money, or even if you're coming into $100,000, right?
It's an advice.
Where should you let's talk about where and who, because I think it's easy to ding people on, well, see, they didn't blah blah, but and that's cool, but I want to say, where would you go? Because here's the thing that I faced prior to now is like, people were telling me about this and I'm like, well, but I don't know who to call on. So I hit up a wealth manager that I know, like, hey, where should I go? I'm not quite there yet. But because I want to also let me give people two layers of this. One layer is, if you have as much as $5,000 to $10,000, like, don't think you need to be at $1 million to start this kind of stuff, right? Please note that if you are high income and you have not gotten to the point where you're situating all of your things, that you can start somewhere, right? Because I think sometimes we think, well, I can't do it till I get $1 million. Or I can't do it until I get, if you got $100,000, you're in a good position to do some stuff. So let's talk about where to start, because you were in wealth management. I think that we inherently don't always trust everybody. Yeah. And then when we talk about financial planning, if you just go to your quote regular bank, you go to a regular bank, they're gonna start talking to you about retirement and like, you should get this, because, and it's like wealth managers, they're not what I don't call those people wealth managers. No tea, no shade to them. But some of the people who work in some of the banks, they're talking to you about low level things. And I don't have the right language for it, but so that might sound bad.
I mean, because it really comes down to financial literacy. It honestly does. It comes down to financial literacy.
What people are they going to meet? What people are they going to meet though? Right? Let's give it to them. So what people should they be calling?
Mm-hmm. I tell you what, okay, so in your instance, in your example that you offer, when you say someone comes across $5,000, $10,000, I would say you would have to go to an organization. I tell you, a good organization might be a Fidelity. I mean, they will look at you, okay, and they will view what you're trying to do. And let me say this, and I'm not saying this as though some being pompous, but there was a time when I first got into the field, I would talk to literally anybody. If you said you had $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, okay, yeah, I can help you. And then it got to a point, when you started really kind of rolling and you got some typical force and things that started happening, and I was in the field for a while. Those people now. I honest to God, I wouldn't talk. Yeah, that's real. I wouldn't talk to you unless you had at least 50 grand. If we weren't talking and you started with, you can talk to that person.
But thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because I think this is a reality, right? Like, so when we say things like, or people just need to have financial literacy, or people just need to do a thing. The reason why I'm glad you brought that out, and I don't think I'm not judging you for that at all. I think that like in the realm of being in the business, you gotta spend your time with what appears to be the most serious client. Anybody would tell you that in any business, right? So like I'm not, I'm not dinging you for that, but I'm glad you brought it out, because sometimes we just say like, oh, well, people should be thinking like this, or people should be doing that, but we don't always get down to this practical side of it, which is I also faced that when it was just like me with $5,000. I faced that, like people being like, oh, well, call me back when you got 50. Or like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
Now, was I offended initially? Yes, I was. But like, but I understand. So I want to say now thank you, David. I gotta let you go because I got more people now. The phone lines are blowing up now. But I gotta go to a quick break. Oh wait, I can go. Okay, wait, I can go to it a little later. All right, so here's the thing. Here's what I want to say. So Charles Schwab, Fidelity, these are your wealth management firms. I'm not exactly talking about like a Merrill Lynch, which I mean, that's no shade to Merrill Lynch, but I'm just saying you want to look up like wealth management firms. What you can do if you have a low amount, like $5,000 or $10,000, is you can do some estate planning. If you don't have an asset, let's say you don't have let's say you don't have a house or anything like that, but I would consider a life insurance policy. I would consider exploring a life insurance policy that actually is a appreciating asset, or actually is an asset that can gather some capital for you. And I'm blanking on the this whole life in its term, right? So the whole life policies are going to cost a little bit more, but they're actually going to be more valuable. Your term insurance is going to be, and this, by the way, let me caveat, go seek professionals. This is not my lane of professionalism. I'm telling y'all just from experience. For the term life insurance, though, that's just like car insurance, right? So like you're paying it and you're insured, but you can't necessarily like borrow against it in the same way. Whole life insurance is where you want to be. Now, you can go from term to whole. So you can find a policy where you can go start out as term, so you can just have it. And then you eventually can move over to that policy over to a whole life policy. So you'll want to look into like policies like that can, if you can't afford it at this moment, that as you gain your wealth, or as you focus on business, or as you focus on growing, that you can move over to that whole life policy that then starts to generate essentially some capital that you can eventually borrow against, or retire in some instances, almost retire from, and use to kind of live your everyday life at some point, right? But once you have that asset, now you can put that asset in delivering to the trust. It takes you about $5,000 to set a trust up, if you're going to the right folks. And then you can set that trust up. You can have your policy, your insurance policy be held by that. Therefore, it can pay out to your family. That's one start. The biggest transfer of wealth is at death. The biggest transfer of wealth is at death. The biggest transfer of wealth is at death. Why am I saying that? Because a lot of times we don't want to do planning for us to leave this earth, and we're doing a disservice to the generations that we have if we don't do planning for us to leave this earth. So you can have a whole life policy, or have a life insurance policy that could be very helpful to your children, or to whoever you want to leave it to when you leave this earth. The biggest transfer of wealth is at death. Okay, so make sure, and it's something that I'm trying to like push my parents to get into. There's a generation of folks who don't want to get into it. And, for multiple reasons, I guess they don't want to talk about death at all. And I get it, and they don't want to do this kind of planning, but I'm really pressing like, hey, really think about what you're leaving legacy wise and wealth wise. Let me go to Anthony in North Carolina. Anthony. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, homie, how you
I'm
doing
doing
today?
all right. How you doing?
I'm good. You were talking about being in Cannes, and you were talking about the wealth, the signs of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Your watch, your necklace, your bracelet, your shoes. And I went to Monaco, and we went to the niche yacht event, and it was just amazing. I don't care how much money you think you have, when you're there, it's like monopoly money to them. I mean, it is just literally like monopoly money. But, you know, the reality is, I think, like the young lady you were talking about, I don't think she wanted anybody else to be in her space because she wanted to be the special person there. But she ain't special. There's a lot of folks with money like that. You know, but yeah, definitely, you know, it's a whole different flow and vibe, like going into the casino, being there, and truly seeing people who have money, that they're making more money every time they go to sleep than they're ever spending.
Totally different vibe.
You know, it's just
totally different vibe.
Yeah,
You know what? You said something though.
different
You
vibe.
said something, Anthony. You said she wanted to be the special. Oh my God. You're saying something. Because when it comes to equality in exclusive spaces, I think this is interesting. There is something around a group of people of color who feel special enough to be there. And sometimes you made to feel special enough to be there by the people around you, you know? And so, but now what happens when you're not so quote special anymore? You are actually just the norm. And that's a question. What happens when in that question of equality, are we ready to just be the norm? Or do we actually really kind of like the fact that we can go like, oh no, this is Black people only, or this is the way you talk to me or be with me, or this is what, like, we like our exclusive stuff. In general, people, like, I'm not blaming just Black people. I'm saying, like, in general, we like exclusive stuff. So are we ready? So now does it become like exclusive and norm? And then what happens when there's more people of color in exclusive spaces with you, but maybe they don't act like you, because maybe they're like, I made it into this exclusive space. I don't need to impress these people the way you feel like you have needed to for all these years. You feel like all these years you have needed to get into this space and impress these people. All I needed to do was get in the space. They impressed by me already because I'm laughing, kikiing, and having fun. I don't know if they're laughing at me or looking at me, and I don't care, right? And the younger generations are like that. They're like, I paid to come to South of France. I'm here. I paid my way. I did what I need to do to get in here. I'm in here. I'm not so concerned about whether or not they look at me right or wrong. However, there is a generation of folks that when they get in a space, we absolutely want them to look at us, quote, right. It's like, don't look at us wrong. Look at us, quote, right, because we know we are. So, okay, special moment that happened. I wasn't going to say this. Oof, I don't even know if I should say it.
What?
Not you, XPM. So, we were on the yacht. And this is right after Mary J performed. And granted, there's people on yachts beside us, and they're all sort of watching Mary J perform too. Well, after she left, you know, then the DJ's just spinning whatever, and everybody's just dancing. And my friend was like, she tapped me like, yo, no, I'm not staying out here. I'm about to go inside. And I was like, wow, what's up? She was like, look up. When we turned around and looked up, there was a group of white folks just looking at us. Like all their chairs. No, not like what you're doing here, but just like we're the entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like just all like they're just observing. Yeah, and it was an icky, weird feeling. It was very icky. It was very weird. And we left.
Did you feel like you was in a sunken place?
Yeah. No, yeah, for real. That's how I felt. Yeah. And we left after that. Because it was like, oh, wait a minute. You know, it's like I'm not, you know, this is extreme, but you know, almost minstrel show. So like, you know, like they're just looking at us like we're over here. Like it was wild. It was wild. But so to your point.
So was that the first time you've been to Cannes?
Yeah, that was my first time. That was my first time in the South of France. Yeah.
Okay. Now, me and my friends, we travel a lot, and I've been a lot of places. Wealth is I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't even. You can't imagine how much wealth there is just going into a Chopard watch shop, and every watch is $300,000.
Right. Okay. Wait, Anthony. This is such a great conversation, but I gotta go to a break. But yes. Okay, we can keep talking about this all night. And I love it. And I'm gonna keep talking about it throughout the show. But I gotta go, Anthony. Thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Also hit me up. Y'all traveling all the time. 202-918-4483. I'm interested where y'all going next. 202-918-4483. That's the only homie sexless number. We gotta go to a quick break. We come back. We're gonna talk to Karen Donaldson about how to tactfully end a political argument. Keep it locked right here. You listen to Every Good Morning.